Hey guys, Krzysztof the Polish Geek here, and I have a review for you of The Flash. And was the movie as awesome as the early critics made you to believe? Or is it overhyped? And warning, there will be huge spoilers in this video. They don't come until later, but there will very much be spoilers. You have been warned. And I have to say that the movie was overhyped. Yes, there were some very good moments that I say I outright loved, but overall the movie very much was overhyped, and it was nowhere near the awesome masterpiece that the early critic reviews made you believe. First thing I would say about this movie, yes, the CGI in this movie really is bad, as everybody is saying. Like, there were some scenes that literally felt like out of a bad quality video game. Yeah, so when it comes to some of the CGI, it was terrible. Like, there were some really great moments in the movie, but there were some moments that the movie could have done a lot better. Like, especially first two acts of the movie, I'm actually going to say were great. But then the third act, it's when it really all falls apart. But first two acts were great, and then in the third act, it all falls apart. So first I'll talk about some of the good things about the movie. Let's talk about Ezra Miller first. I still think the guy is a criminal, and he shouldn't be, like, in the movies. Like, I hope this is one of his last roles, because that guy is a criminal. But even though I have no respect for him whatsoever, I'm not going to lie that he's actually done a pretty decent job as Barry Allen the Flash. And because there is also a different Flash, a younger Barry Allen, who freshly is getting his powers. And I have to say, Ezra Miller has surprisingly done a decent job of portraying two different Barry Allens. And they almost felt like a separate character. Like, one was our Barry Allen, who was older and more matured, but then the other one was Barry Allen from the early timeline, who was pretty immature and was excited to freshly have gotten his powers. And the dynamic between them was actually pretty good and pretty funny too. So that was actually pretty well done. The story of the movie is actually pretty good. It's that Barry Allen goes back in time to prevent his mother's death, but as a result that creates an entire different timeline. And yeah, sounds very much like Flashpoint Paradox, because it was actually loosely based on the Flashpoint Paradox story. Although I think the story in the animated Flashpoint Paradox movie was actually better and cooler, but whatever. But as I said, the story in this movie was good, and I liked actually how they explained how timeline change works. Actually, I really like how Michael Keaton's Batman explained it while using a spaghetti, which basically showed how very complicated it really was. But I thought it was a really cool way to explain it with a spaghetti. Once Barry Allen changes the timeline, he's actually around the time when General Zod invades Earth. So of course he tries to gather the rest of the Justice League to help, but then it turns out most of Justice League doesn't even exist. There's no Wonder Woman, there's no Cyborg, there's no Superman, and there is Batman, but it's not Ben Affleck, but Michael Keaton's Batman. We'll get to him later. And of course, Aquaman was never born because, although Barry Allen does contact Aquaman's father, it turns out Aquaman's father never actually married his mother, thus Aquaman was never born. It's actually a pretty funny phone exchange in a movie. And then, of course, both Barry Allens go to Wayne Manor and encounter Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne Batman and recruit him. And by the way, the introductory scene of Michael Keaton's Batman is probably the single best scene in the entire movie. Like, the scene is nostalgic and it's amazing. And it's also the very scene where he explains to them how exactly timeline works with a spaghetti. And that's probably the single best scene in the entire movie. Now we'll finally talk about Michael Keaton's Batman, because let's face it, Michael Keaton as Batman Bruce Wayne is the very thing most of us have been looking forward to the most in this movie. Like, let's face it, that's the only reason many people want to see this movie anyway. So let's talk about Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman. And I have to be honest, while I do think Michael Keaton himself did a phenomenal job as Batman, I do also think he was sadly wasted as the character, because honestly, it feels like it could be really any other actor playing a very different Batman. It didn't really feel like it was that Batman at all. Like, as I said, it could really be any different actor playing any different version of Batman. Because let's contrast it with No Way Home, where Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, they very much felt like the old Spider-Mans we knew and loved, and they very much enhanced a story. But here, it honestly feels like Michael Keaton's Batman was very much a pure nostalgia bait, because, as I already said, there were barely any even callbacks to the movies he played in, like other than the few one-liners, like the famous one, "Wanna get nuts? Let's get nuts." But even then, as I said, those one-liners like weren't really cool in this different context. So ultimately, as I said, while Michael Keaton himself did a phenomenal job, I don't really think the screenwriters did a very phenomenal job at implementing him, because ultimately it feels like it could be any other different incarnation of Batman. It didn't really feel like specifically Michael Keaton's Batman. So yes, Michael Keaton's Batman is both the best part of the movie, but also the part that could be improved in lots of ways, and the part that I say was the biggest waste, actually. Because I said, while he was awesome in a movie, I do feel he could easily be replaced with any different version of Batman and the story wouldn't really change much. So then, both Barry Allen's and Michael Keaton's Batman travel to save the captured Superman, although it quickly turns out to be Supergirl. And come on, let's face it, we all knew it from the trailers. And by the way, I thought Supergirl was actually a very well done character. She was not like a girl boss Mary Sue, but an actual great character with depth and weaknesses. So yeah, I thought Supergirl was very well done character here. And now let's talk about the third act of the movie. And now we are getting into a gigantic spoiler territory. So if you still haven't seen the movie, now we're getting into a spoiler territory. You have been warned. And the third act is really where it most all falls apart. Like, the third act is so rushed, and then even the final villain reveal, who's revealed to be Dark Flash, and we already knew it from the action figures that were leaked. Like honestly, he feels so forced. Like, Dark Flash felt pretty forced. He looked really cool, and he sounded cool on paper, but ultimately, I think his appearance was very rushed. Like, it's like he gets introduced, and then we learn who he is, and then he quickly gets defeated pretty quickly. Yep, that's pretty much it. And I thought that was very, very rushed. Like, maybe they should at least give a much longer conversation with him, or a longer final battle with him, or like, there would be no problem with making a movie at least 10 minutes longer to give us far more elaboration on the Dark Flash, because the way that he happened in the movie, it feels like he was just like thrown in at the last second just for the sake of some twist, some sort of a new villain twist, nothing else. So yeah, Dark Flash looked really cool and sounded cool on paper, but ultimately I don't think they quite executed him well, and his appearance in defeat was very, very rushed. So yeah, Dark Flash was very much wasted, because I still had so many more questions about him, but yeah, the movie just like lazily introduced him, he told us who he is, and killed him off quickly. That's it. And the final negative about the movie I have is the very last scene. At the very last scene, where Barry Allen theoretically restores the timeline how it originally supposed to be, he like finally helps his father be cleared of all charges, and then of course Bruce Wayne appears, but it's George Clooney, which I'm even confused why. Like, no one ever liked Batman and Robin movie. I'm pretty sure most people don't even remember George Clooney played Batman there, and he never even done a good job. Like, no one cares for the George Clooney Batman. Like I don't see it felt like literally nothing more than for the sake of more cameos, nothing else. That's literally what it felt like. Maybe they could have shown us Ben Affleck one last time, or maybe Michael Keaton. In fact, if they use Michael Keaton again for this final scene, it would actually be a very nice way to set up a Batman Beyond movie with Michael Keaton as an older Bruce Wayne, especially that many fans, including me, kind of would really like a Batman Beyond movie with Michael Keaton portraying older Bruce Wayne. So yeah, if it was Michael Keaton in that final scene, it would actually be a really awesome way to set up Batman Beyond. And if it was Ben Affleck, then I guess you could say it was basically to show us that Barry Allen did in fact restore the timeline. But no, for some reason they had to throw in George Clooney there, and as I said, it's most certainly for no reason other than more cameos, even though no one cares about George Clooney. So overall, I have to say The Flash was very, very overhyped. There were some really good things in the movie, but there were some really bad things too. So overall, I have to say that the movie was disappointing. And maybe because of how the critics overhyped it, maybe that's why, but either way, I think the movie could have been so much better. And I think Flashpoint Paradox is a much better story than this. Okay guys, thank you for checking out this video. What did you think of The Flash? Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and I'll talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you later, bye!